in some ways, there's a reframe here, okay? In some ways, it can be better to be ghosted on because he's just shown such a low level of character that screw that guy. He can go live his life. This thing is done. I wouldn't even want anything to do with someone who would ever do that to another human being. All right, today, Gary, we are going to be talking about ghosting. Dun, dun, dun. I'm not gonna lie, dude. I was gonna ghost on you today just to like make you feel the pain of ghosting, so we could talk about it. Honestly, I'm on vacation mode. I'm going on a cruise later this
Oh,
week. Yeah, that's why I'm wearing like my Boca Raton. And for those who are watching this on YouTube, like I'm going to Miami. I'm getting ready. It's a bachelor party, so I'm like going with a bunch of 30-year-old guys, and I'm like the old dude who's got the invite. And so I don't know.
now, so were you the old guy that was invited because you're old and responsible, or because you're old and very irresponsible?
Oh, definitely the latter. I'm very
Okay.
irresponsible. I'm actually probably the least mature of most of these men, but it's my wife's best friend. She's marrying this guy who's now a really good friend of mine. But I was like, sure, I'll go. 20 guys going, and then me with the gray hair.
What
Let's
could go
go.
wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong? So if I ghost you next week,
That's what it's going to happen.
then we really know. I'm hopefully going to come back with a great tan, very well rested, relaxed, but realistically, I'm going to look like crap next week. So prepare
Hell,
yourself.
I just hope you come back, right? I mean, I've seen The Hangover. I just hope you make it back. So good luck to you.
Oh
All
my
of your
god.
teeth. Like, I hope the whole thing, you can bring back a pet tiger. That's fine too. Just come back, please. We need
Honestly, Gary, I go to bed at like 9 p.m. I'll be
you.
up early working. I'll be just like relaxing. Trust me, I'm the lame dude on this trip. That is for sure. But anyways, back to today's topic. We're going to be talking about why this happens. And I consider ghosting to be the rudest thing a person can do to another human being throughout the dating process. So I'll give you some insight as to why this might be happening to you if you've experienced this before, and go from there. Gary, I know you have a story from a client this recently came up, and that's maybe why we're talking about it today. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think ghosting is probably the number one thing that clients complain about the most. Like,
Yeah.
guys today, they're ghosting all the time. And so, I do have a story, but it's like, it wasn't, I felt like hundreds of stories to choose from because this comes up so frequently. But this one in particular is just, it stings. Like, this is a bad one, right?
Okay.
And so I just thought I would share this one just to kind of really set the tone for this. Because I do think sometimes people are like, texting with a guy for a day and then he stops texting, like he ghosted me. Like, that's not fully like he just stopped texting you, right?
Nah,
Like,
it's not ghosting unless you meet in real life.
right. Like, and so like this one's a real life one. Okay. So the client's name is Joan. Okay, that's a fake name because we don't want to divulge who this person is. She was dating this guy, Dave. That is his real name because screw that guy. He ghosted. He's a terrible dude. So that is his actual real name.
All right, Dave. So if anyone else there is dating a Dave, then dump him because he's gonna go. No. All right, screw that guy.
He's dating this guy for 7 months. They were serious. They had to define the relationship. Things were great, right?
Yeah.
Everything was clicking. Tons of chemistry. They were going to an anniversary dinner.
Okay.
He was late. Okay, not typical, but it wasn't the first time he was late either. She thought nothing of it, grabbed a drink at the bar. Yeah. And on their 7-month anniversary date that they had, she's at the bar getting a drink, just waiting because like he'll be here any minute. He never showed up at all. And like she, according to her, had no idea. There were no signs. Like everything literally was wonderful. They made this arrangement and he never showed. So she ate her anniversary dinner at the bar by herself.
Oh.
And like she talked about this on one of our mastermind sessions.
Such a thing.
Yeah, and it was like
that's extreme.
I mean, that's a ghost, right? I mean, like that's terrible. And it's like you could just see like everybody. It's like that's a horrible experience.
Yeah.
And so
how's she doing?
She rebounded, like and I think she has rebounded from that quite nicely because it's a lot of things we're going to talk about today. And this gives a little bit of away, but like ghosting says so much more about the other person. Like, so this is in this case, a Dave problem,
Yeah.
right? And it's something it's hard to realize at first because there's no closure and there's a lot of wondering and it's like, what the
Right.
hell's going on?
Yeah.
But then you start realizing like it's not as much about you as it is about them.
Well,
And
the degree of low character behavior that is ghosting, it's
yeah,
so low to just ghost on someone, especially once you're months into a relationship. In 7 months, I've been doing this for a long time and I've never heard of anything that extreme. And to experience that and he doesn't respond, he just doesn't show up. God, it's like the most annoying advice or the most annoying wisdom in the world, which is just you dodged a bullet at least.
yeah,
Right? Because
right.
what a low character move on that guy.
Well,
Ugh.
because and there was nothing. If everything was really going so well for so long, it wasn't anything you were doing. Like
Yeah.
something changed in his. There's who knows, right? And
Right.
that's the frustrating thing about ghosting is that it feels personal, but at the same time, it's hard for it to be that personal. But
Yeah.
you just don't know because there's absolutely no closure. Um,
Right.
and so I think the fact of the matter is, as much as ghosting always seems like it's completely out of nowhere, there probably were some signs or some groundwork that was laid that made ghosting more likely. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Is like, why
Yeah.
does this happen? And just some of the things you can kind of do to be on the lookout for it and some things you can do to prevent it.
Yeah. And I think I would move that probably to definitely signs of ghosting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just when we're in that stage of a new relationship, we have a way of overlooking the signs and the risks that are involved in getting involved with a person because we're in that just early honeymoon stage of a relationship where, oh my God, this person is perfect. He's incredible. And we just are, it's like our brain doesn't register those signs, those small signs that we see along the way. And it's, I would be willing to bet my life. I would be willing to bet my trip going on a cruise this
Holy so
upcoming weekend that there were signs there that we may have overlooked. And that's not coming from a place of lack of compassion of what she's going through.
Right.
But what we can do at least is bring these learnings forward to the new relationship that you will eventually find.
Yeah, because I think it's like anything else. Like once you learn more about any topic, right? And so like for both of us, and I say this to clients all the time, is like because you know so much about relationships, you see things. You don't just see the first layer; you see several layers back as well, and you kind of see like where things are going and where things are coming from. And so that's the whole point of people listening to a podcast like this is just learn more about relationships. So you see more of the nuance. You kind of get to peek around corners a little bit and see what's coming in a way that most people just can't because they don't have this information.
Right.
Um, and so, with ghosting, before we start talking about what it is, I think it's super important to talk about what's not going on when someone ghosts because you get into the problem of ghosting and like we just said about like missing some of the signs because of wishful thinking. And so every once in a while we'll get clients when somebody ghosts and they start coming up with a bunch of reasons what's going on. Like they don't want to believe he ghosted, so they think other things are going on. Like,
Should we define what ghosting is even before we get into that for those
yeah,
who
go
don't
ahead,
even
yeah,
know
go
the
for it.
term?
Yeah, could you do that for us?
Yeah, of course. I mean, ghosting is just simply when you are dating someone in real life, not online dating, not chatting. You've gone on, I would say we consider more than 3 dates with a person. And then you just never hear from them again. They don't respond to your texts. They just seem to literally disappear, kind of like a ghost. Now, I lay that down because some people will go on a first date with someone and then never hear from that person again and be like, oh, he ghosted me. Yeah, there's an argument for that being ghosting, but that's kind of part of the 21st century dating world. I'm not excusing it, but like from where we stand from in love strategies, how we teach it, it's really once you start to develop a real connection with a person and then they just disappear out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people miss the signs, like we were saying, because of wishful thinking and just ignoring obvious things, right? And
Yeah.
so, when ghosting happens, there's this like other form of wishful thinking that kicks in, where it's like he didn't ghost me, he just lost my number, his phone broke, his
Right.
battery died. He just got really, really busy at work for the last week and a half,
Right.
right? He just is so scared by how much he's in love with me that it's overwhelming for him and he's giving himself a 2-week break.
He likes me so much that he doesn't want to be near me because when he's with me, he just feels so much. So now he's going to disappear. I've heard that
Yeah,
many,
and I was
many
gonna say,
times.
I'll admit, I did not think of that one on my own. Like but I've heard that, like almost word
Yeah.
for word. It's like exactly how you just did. Like he loves me so much.
Yeah. I've heard
It's
guys
just
say that too about women. You're like, oh, dude, she was so into me that like she just needed a little bit of a break from me because she like, couldn't handle it. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, guy. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what happened. Okay. She was so into you, bro.
yeah.
That
And I
I don't
think
know.
the other
It's
big one
clearly a
is
young guy who's saying this.
yeah, right. It's like someone just doesn't know any better. And I think the other one that kind of falls under that too is like, they were in a bad car accident, and you start like spinning out on these like fictionalized stories, like there was a car accident or a kidnapping or someone died or this kind of stuff, or like maybe he's dead, maybe I got to call the police, maybe I got to track him down. It's like no, 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 no.
Yeah.
In all of these things, he's to be like the thing that I remind people of all the time is like a text takes seconds,
Yeah.
and you're not getting a text,
Right.
and so no answer is an answer. Like everyone's like, but I don't have closure. I don't have closure. I don't have closure. You do, because texting takes 3 seconds and he hasn't been bothered enough to do that. So that's closure.
That is the closure. No
Mhm.
response is response. And I wouldn't truly close the book on anything until it's been a week. If it's a week of nothingness, now, like, look, I've had clients come on, or I've worked with people, men and women, who will be like, I haven't heard back in 4 hours. I haven't heard
Yeah,
back in a day. He's ghosting me.
right,
Let's lower the temperature here a little bit. Okay.
right.
Like, who knows? But if it's been a week, and I mean, everyone has their phone attached to their hip. Now we're getting to the ghosting territory, and that's when I would be closing that book for good. Quick side tangent. I gotta ask because I want to make this a little bit personal. Gary, have you ever been ghosted on before?
I have not.
You've never been ghosted.
No, I mean I've been married for 20 plus years, so it's tough.
Yeah, fair enough. I once got ghosted. I was ghosted on, but I completely deserved it. I was like dating this girl who I really liked, but I think I was like 26 at the time. And I was going through the phase where I was like so confused about what I wanted. And I really liked her though. And I remember she asked me, she's like, so what are you looking for? I'm like, I just really want to like keep things exactly the way they are. Like I don't really want to make this very serious right now, but I really want to keep seeing you. Basically, I'm saying like I want the girlfriend experience without the commitment and all that
Okay.
stuff. All the stuff we tell you women to avoid, like the plague. And then I remember leaving and feeling good, and then she just never responded to me ever again. Like that was it. She completely ghosted me, and we were seeing each other for like 3 months. And I gotta say, I was like, "You go, girl!" Like I literally came out of this being like, good for you. You just dodged a bullet. Like thinking back on it, but yeah. And then I like looked her up seriously like a year later. She was like engaged to another guy, and she moved back to I think Florida or something like that. I was like, good for you. I mean, she should have probably said something, but whatever. Maybe not. She ghosted. She got out of the situation, and it's
Right.
done. So
Well, she did what was best for her at the moment, and like you said, maybe dodged a 26-year-old Adam Bullet.
yeah, yeah. And she did. She definitely dodged a bullet. Stay away. I wasn't really ready for anything serious like marriage until I was about 30.
Right.
But with that said, I should say, like, when it comes to dating, and I know I'm going off script here, Gary, so bear with me, but there is no problem with ending it with someone where you don't see a future. Like, everyone needs to realize that men, women, whoever, whatever relationship you're in, if you're not feeling it, that's okay. And to have an honest conversation with someone, that is okay. What's not okay is just completely disappearing. And that is a coward move. Like when a man does that to a woman, he is being a coward. He really is. Like
Okay.
just step up to the plate, give her a call. I mean, I remember one woman in particular I was talking to and dating, and we only went out on like 3 or 4 dates, but it just wasn't right. Like I wasn't feeling it. And the old me probably would have, I don't know, texted her or something like that. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna live by like kind of I want to give good dating karma. We talk a lot about that in our coaching, like good dating vibes, good dating karma. And I called her and I was like, hey, I just don't see this being a fit. Whatever, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, thank you. Thank you for just calling and letting me know that. I really appreciate that. And so I think
Yeah.
it's a lesson for all of us to try. It's like the golden rule, like just treat people the way you want to be treated. And for all of us out there, if you want to get the good dating vibes, good karma out there, just be upfront with people and expect the same from others. So I just,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have no time for men who do that to women, and I have no time for women who do that to men. It's so rude.
How many times do people say they just want the other person to communicate, right? I mean, that's what we
Yeah.
always want. And, how many times do people who are dating just, it's an adult thing to do, right? And it's like you have to be an adult in the dating world. You have to be willing and able to have tough conversations.
Right.
Whether you're giving that tough conversation to somebody else or being on the receiving end of a tough conversation. We always say we want open and honest communication, and you have to be willing to hear the tough news and you have to be willing to give the tough news. And it's just something that you get better and better at as you get older, and you just kind of realize we're all adults here. We all actually want the same thing. And it's better that I'm telling you this now on day 7 instead of at year 7. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's important. And so we want to make sure we're doing that. And I think, part of being an adult in all this is taking a little bit of responsibility and not blaming all men. Like, I mean, that's one thing you'll hear from folks is all men are like this. All men ghost all the time. I'm going to, guys are terrible, especially guys on the apps. They're terrible. It's like, no, that's not true. That's not all of them. Some of them, some guys, some of the times, but not all guys all the time. And so, it's counterproductive. We've talked about this in other podcasts, so we won't belabor this, but it's just counterproductive to play the victim like this is always happening to you. It's like, it's not your fault entirely, but you're not completely blameless either. And so you just kind of have to accept some part of it as, what part of this are you controlling and what part do you play in this? And so that's really what we're going to talk about today. And we're talking about, three of the reasons why guys ghost.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think with anything that happens in our life, taking ownership is like the first step. Like the winners I've met in life are the ones who like something bad happens to them and they look for ways to take ownership. And then the people who always struggle in life look for ways to blame others and play the victim card. It's just crazy. And I've just
Right.
noticed this a lot with people. And yeah, if you're taking ownership, sometimes you're taking ownership of stuff that isn't even your fault, but you're like, hey, I can only control myself. I can only control the way I show up on these dates. I can only control the guys that I choose to go out with. Even if that one decision is what led ultimately to the ghosting, that is still on you. Like you did make that decision. So
Right.
I think it's just so powerful and empowering. This is the biggest thing. I know we belabored this many times, but I think it's worth mentioning again. It's empowering to take ownership, because if you don't take ownership, then guess what? Men are the problem. I can't change men. So screw it. I'm not going to date anymore. So, all right, let's jump into these 3 things. Let's do it.
So one of the reasons why men are ghosting, and this is something women can take some responsibility over, is you're doing this without realizing you're sending the wrong signals, or the signals you're sending to guys are confusing. They're not clear enough. And sometimes it's as simple as you're just not as emotionally available as you think you are, right? You're not being as vulnerable perhaps as you think you are. And that's, maybe because you don't want to get hurt. And so you're holding back. And so the guy could possibly read that as, she's just not that into me. And you have to remember, guys, they don't want to get rejected either. And so if he's kind of reading like a hesitation on your part, he may not be thinking it's about vulnerability or anything like that. He might just be like, she doesn't really like me. And so he is going to play the odds for himself and just think like, this woman isn't really into me, so I'm going to focus my attention elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky with, I think, being a female, and that's why we coach women in dating, is that showing interest. Like a lot of women are told to not show interest in a guy when you're dating. Don't come off as needy. Don't give him any compliments. Don't tell him how you feel or that you like him or that he's a really special person. Because if you do that, then you're going to push him away. And that's why we teach in the little love steps and everything we do is like move slowly and intentionally while at the same time give him lots of green light signals. Show him that you like him. Tell him that he's a very special guy. Tell him how much you respect him, that he's really funny, that he's interesting. Wow, you're like one of the most interesting people I've met in a really long time. And only say that if you actually mean it. But give that love, because I think I've certainly dated women where you just don't feel it. Like you feel like there's something there. She's very guarded. She's not really interested in me. And like, I don't know, I'm not going to waste my time with this situation if she's just not into it. So the beautiful thing is if you move slow and you pace the way we teach, you can actually show a lot of interest and be very open and be very vulnerable throughout the dating process. It's kind of like a weird counterintuitive approach to dating, but it's very effective and it's really important.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the other things that's going on with sending confusing or maybe too subtle of a signal is he doesn't think you're into him, or he thinks you might be into him, but he worries about whether he can actually keep you interested. Right? Is he good enough? He's worried about rejection that way, and so there might be a low confidence thing on his side. And so, as Adam was just kind of pointing out there, it's like sending a bunch of green light signals, laying out the welcome mat is going to help make it much more clear to him where you actually stand. Because I think the important thing here is the guys that don't need those green lights are those cocky, charismatic, perhaps narcissistic guys who just don't need they're just like, I'm sure she wants me. But then like those other guys, like they need a little bit of, assurance, right? It's like kind of, he wants to make sure he's not just going to get flat out rejected. And so in those cases, the whole thing's about why do guys ghost? If they're not getting clear enough signals, he might just ghost to let himself down easier. Like he's doing it to protect his own feelings because he doesn't want to have the conversation with you because that's just going to extend the amount of pain he's going to have. He's like, this girl's really not into me. So why do I want to talk to her about this? And so it's just much easier to like cold turkey, cut it off completely and just walk away. And he's doing it in a self-preservation way.
Never underestimate the male ego. Never underestimate it. Okay. Look, if he just gets that feeling he's not getting a lot of love, or maybe you're going to end it with him or whatever it is, you're just not getting it. He'll run for the hills, and
Yep.
we just need that constant like affirmation that you're into us. Because
Yep.
I'm telling you, like, it's so crazy. Like when I started coaching men and I switched to women, I really realized how much women don't realize that men need that love and that praise. And like we have this ego that just needs to be filled. It's kind of crazy. If we're not getting it, we're gonna run out of fear. And women don't think that men have that fear, but we definitely do. So it's really important to keep that in mind. I love that.
Cool. Yeah. And so, I think in that case, like I said, the guys are ghosting. And again, ghosting is the wrong way to do it. But the reason why they're ghosting is to kind of save themselves. This next one is a guy's ghosting. And this time it's to save you, to let you down a little bit easier. And that's in the case of what I'm calling misaligned enthusiasm. Essentially, you're coming on too strong. You're too open. You're sharing a lot, too emotional. You're planning too much time together, monopolizing a lot of time. Too much talk of the future. It's just too much, too soon, too quick, and it's overwhelming. And he's realizing like he's into you. He's getting there, but he's not fully in. But like you're super fully into him, and he starts to wonder if he's ever going to get to where you want him to go. And
Yeah.
so he gets out of that relationship to let you down easy.
Yeah. And like men will tell themselves stories that ghosting you is the best thing to do here, because actually breaking up with you would be worse than just like letting you be and she'll find her guy. I'm not the right guy for her. And I've heard
Okay.
guys tell this weird internal, it's not even internal, they'll externalize their internal dialogue and they'll say, yeah, you know what, like she just needs to go find her person. She's clearly at a different stage in life. She wants more than I do. And they ghost. And my advice to all those guys is, hey man, just call her and let her know that. At least let her off the hook. Once you do, it's all good. Now she also has that kind of feedback. She's aware of that and can maybe move forward on her next relationship and not move too fast. And by the way, guys do the same thing to women and women ghost on guys. Same type of stuff. There's plenty of guys who come on too strong, too quick, too early, become that needy Ned. And they're like, I don't know. I'm just not that attracted to him. I'm just not that into him. I don't know. The spark's not there. He's just too available. And it's just part of the dating game. And so all of that is okay up until the point of ghosting. But that is a core reason for a lot of guys ghosting, is to, in many ways, save you from your feelings, which is ridiculous because, of course, you're going to feel even worse being ghosted on.
Right. But, you know, it comes down to this idea, like, from his perspective, you're looking for more than he's willing to give. Right.
Yeah.
And so he knows there's a gap in expectations. And so he's like, I'm going to do her a favor and just get out of here. And it seems awful and horrible from your side of the thing. But it's like, on some level, and there's one of our clients that says this all the time. And she says, just kind of casually, like, sometimes the guys just next themselves. Like, they just kind of like get
Next.
out of there themselves. Right.
Yeah.
And it's true. And here's the thing. And this is like a completely different way of thinking about this. This is a huge win. Like, the ghosting part feels terrible, but if like you have misaligned enthusiasm, expectations, hopes for the future, and he sees it and knows he's not going to get where you want him to go, and he ghosts, that is a big, big win for you, because you just saved yourself weeks, definitely months, perhaps, possibly years of him trying, you dragging him along, trying to convince him that this is what he wants. And it's just like all that, you save yourself months and months and months of turmoil. And so from that perspective, it's a really nice way to look at this as like, okay, he left. That's closure. That's an answer. That saved me some trouble down the road.
Yeah. And honestly, like, as we're talking about this more and more, like, I feel like humans tend to overestimate how good closure really feels anyways. It's kind of like we think that suddenly we'll get closure, we'll have a conversation, and it's like, I feel so much better. Sometimes you do. But
It
really, like, a
is.
lot of times it's just going through a painful experience anyways. Like, it's not going to be fun when he's breaking up with you. And so if someone does ghost on you, in some ways, there's a reframe here, okay? In some ways, it can be better to be ghosted on because he's just shown such a low level of character that screw that guy. He can go live his life. This thing is done. I wouldn't even want anything to do with someone who would ever do that to another human being. It's like, it just shows such a low level of like assholeness. So, excuse my language, but like the fact that someone would do that, like, in many ways should immediately have you think to yourself, wow, I must have missed something. And I'm so happy to not be dating him anymore. That's amazing. Like, you could literally think to yourself that way. I know it'd be painful, but you'd be like, wow, I'm kind of glad that happened. So now I just go live my life and find someone better.
Yeah. And, you know, this also speaks to something else that we say to women all the time when we coach them, is like, your job is to have such a full, complete, amazing life that a guy is lucky to be part of it. And so ghosting becomes much, much less problematic if you do have this complete, amazing life. The guy ghosts, it's like, tough luck for him. Now he doesn't get to be part of this now. I have all this other stuff going on. If you kind of put too much of your life into your relationship and it gets ghosted, that's when frankly, it becomes more devastating. And so that's a problem of how you're approaching things in the first place, and not necessarily the ghosting.
Right. Right. And I think that there's like one thing that you can do when you first start dating someone is see how they handle other relationships in their lives. Are they the type of person who can have direct conversations with other people, or do they cower away from difficult conversations? If they're the type of person who, like, they have a friend who's going through some challenges, or they have a conflict with a friend, are they the type of person who just pushes under the rug or kind of like leaves that person be and doesn't talk to that person? Well, that's more likely to be the type of guy who's going to ghost on you, versus someone who's like the no BS type of person who will just tell you how it is and be open with you. And so, like, I personally, I've always been much more attracted to people who are just upfront, who are not afraid of tough conversations, who can actually open up. And those types of people don't ghost. They just don't, because why would they? They're comfortable doing it. The type of people who do ghost are, again, the type of people who have just this massive amount of fear of any level of conflict, because a breakup by definition is conflict. It's like a heavy level of conflict. It's you want one thing, they want something else, and this is over, and it's not going to be pretty. And so you can really notice this, I think, early on in a connection with just how he deals with things, not only with you and him, but also with other people in his life. So keep an eye out for that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that actually segues really nicely into the third reason why guys ghost, which is there's something about the relationship just feels too complicated, right? Like everybody wants like dating and relationships should be fun. It should be easy. It should be uncomplicated. And guys really want things to be simple. Most people do, right? And so if it starts to feel too complicated, this is where it's like, is there something you're doing possibly that's making it this whole thing more complicated? And we talk about tough love, and it's like, here's some tough love. Like sometimes in relationships, you're being annoying. He can be annoying too. He
Whoa.
can be annoying
Whoa,
too.
Gary. You're preparing us up for some gnarly reviews for that one, but it's
But
true.
this is true.
It's
Like
true.
people, like come on, people. I love people, but sometimes people are annoying. Like I was just at the
Yeah.
beach yesterday on Labor Day. Let me tell you, people are annoying. But like, you can be in some, and you might be annoying in ways you're not really, like complaining a lot, just kind of being high maintenance, self-centered, shallow talking, like being negative and needy, being like emotionally high and low, being a little unpredictable, playing games or seeming like you're playing games. Like these are all things that people just consider normal dating behaviors because they've gotten a lot of bad guidance, sure. But it's like on the other side of it, guys see this as like, gosh, this is complicated. Gosh, this is hard. Like maybe you're asking a bunch of questions because you're not trusting him and he's not giving a bunch of information, but you're like constantly like asking like, who are you going with? Where are you going? What bachelor party was? Who are all the people that are going? Like, what exactly are you doing every possible moment of that time? And it's just like, from his perspective, it's like, oh God, okay. It
Yeah.
becomes one more extra thing. And maybe it's baggage, maybe it's past relationships, but it's like the more complications we bring into a relationship, the less it feels like something the other person, whether it's a male or a female, like it just, the other person just doesn't feel like they want to take on that much extra stuff. And so just pulling the ripcord and getting out of there, that seems like a viable solution sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that advice very much so is for both genders, where I'm sure
Yeah.
you've dated guys who are extremely complicated when it doesn't need to be, extremely jealous, extremely difficult with just like basic things like, hey, I'm going to grab drinks with my friend on Thursday night. Why? Where are you going to go? What are you doing? What's happening? And just complicating, making problems when they don't need to exist. And so, I think being aware of that while you're dating, I mean, is so important because if you're dating a guy who is successful, attractive, who has other options, which is likely the type of guy you want to be with, that's the type of guy all of our clients are dating or looking for, then you're competing with that guy being single and having options. That's what you're competing against. So the relationship needs to be more fulfilling and more and easier, honestly, than being single. Like I know that's like a very non-romantic way of thinking about it, but that is your competition. And once again, ghosting is not acceptable. It's not okay. Just like bailing out on it. Um, but that is ultimately your that's what you're going against. So the relationship itself, I think a lot of people make relationships complicated once things get into a good flow and it almost becomes a little bit boring. Like it's like, oh wow, things are good. We're 7 months in. It's going really well. And then it's like, I don't know, some people just want to create problems where they don't even exist and then are confused when the relationship ends. It's like just roll with it, enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, single is simpler, right? Like I'm sure many people listening to this have had like busy stretches of time at work or in their family life. And it's like, if you're single, it feels a little bit simpler. You don't have other things to worry about. Like trying to date while like work's hectic and life is hectic is tough. And so you're competing with that simplicity, right? The other thing that I think is important because we're looking at like, why do guys ghost? And from a guy's perspective, if you're in a relationship that's already complicated, right? It's annoying. There's just like a lot of extra stuff and drama and fictitious made up problems and things. You're going to be motivated to ghost because having the conversation that maybe you want to have, maybe you know you need to have in your head going into that conversation to end it, you're like, this isn't going to be simple. this is just going to turn into a whole big thing. And chances are the guy in those conversations isn't as verbally adept as his female partner. And so guys a lot of times know in relationship discussions, they're going into that at a disadvantage because you're much better at this than he is. And so if the things are already complicated and he knows he's about to walk into a conversation or a conflict that he's probably going to lose anyway, he's like, why bother? And so just kind of gets out.
Yeah. And I think an easy litmus test for this always, because I can sense the people that need to hear this the most are basically flipping the bird at both of us and hating us for this piece. So I want to give a little bit of a test to those who are listening and pushing back on this. And the litmus test is look at all of the relationships you have, not just your romantic relationships. What are your familial relationships like? What are your platonic relationships like? What are your professional relationships like? Are they all riddled with complexity? And if every relationship, or the vast majority of them, are extremely complex, there's always a massive amount of conflict, there's all these issues, well, we need to take a look at that because you're at the center of that chaos. Okay. Whereas if everything else in life is actually really good, you have open communication, you have healthy relationships everywhere, but the guy you're with right now, everything is complex, well, that's probably a guy problem. You need a new guy. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think it's just really helpful to compare your romantic relationships to everything else you got going on. It just gives you kind of a sense of like where you stand in the ownership part of all of this stuff.
Yeah, and particularly, I think that's a really good test because when you think about what people really want, which is long-term, fulfilling, committed relationships, those types of relationships are generally lower maintenance. They're easy. They're a little more carefree. There's not a lot of extra drama. Like, like after you've been married for a while, like life throws stress and strain and drama your way. Like you don't need to manufacture extra, right? And so it's important to keep things as simple as possible because simple is better. It's more desirable. And that's, what's going to probably be best for both partners long-term anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think to just kind of wrap all this up, like ghosting sucks. There's no good reason. There's no good excuse. Like guys should not do it. The worst part, I think, and for people listening to this, is we want to make sure that it doesn't come out of nowhere because that's, I think, one of the worst parts of this experience. And so, hopefully, the three different things we talked about today allow you to better see some of the signs so you don't get surprised. And I'll just kind of wrap up in one last thought, kind of dovetailing off of what I said at the beginning is, if you kind of go back through this and think of everything we said today, these things really are a lot more about them, the other person, than they are about you, right? Like, so in one case, the guy's trying to save his own feelings. The one case, he's trying to save your feelings on your behalf, and that you didn't ask him to do that. He's doing that as an excuse, really, but he's trying to be noble about it. And the last one, he's just like, forget it, I don't want to deal with this complication, and he's just bailing for that reason. So, in all three of these reasons, it's like the person doing the ghosting, the guy doing the ghosting, it's really his problem, and it has less to do with you.
And long story short, don't get involved with flaky people. This is a flakiness problem. Flaky people who can't deal with conflict, you're going to be able to notice that throughout a relationship. And if you notice, if they're flaky at the beginning, they're going to be flaky later. It only gets worse. And I just think that there's some people who can't deal with conflict. They can't deal with difficult conversations. We do a lot of personality tests here at Love Strategies. We're hiring a lot. And just like as a side note, there's actually like ways to measure people's ability to have direct conversations or people who literally avoid it like the plague. And I guarantee the people who avoid conflict like the plague are the ones who ghost because they just can't handle the heat. Like they just got to stay away from the fire. So, getting involved with the right person and being able to choose the right person is a huge part of this. And if you are going through this right now, we're here for you at any time. And I know this can be extremely painful, but just remember, once again, there's nothing ruder in the world than a guy who ghosts. So if it happens, good riddance. Next. Move on. And we're here for you anytime. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. And thanks, Gary. That was great.